Top news for today, October 27, 2020. President Duterte orders the Department of Justice to investigate allegations of corruption in the entire government. The chief executive is also pushing for government-to-government transaction on COVID-19 vaccine purchase. Swab tests remain free for OFWs. And El Nido Palawan expands its travel bubble until Friday. Good day, I'm Rom Dulfo. Welcome to PNA Newsroom. Our top story, President Rodrigo Duterte stands firm on getting rid of corruption in the last 2 years of his term. To achieve this, he ordered Justice Secretary Nido to investigate allegations of corruption in the entire government.
The DOJ is hereby directed to investigate allegations of corruption in the entire government. The DOJ shall prosecute and file the appropriate charges against all those involved in the anomalies. This directive shall remain in effect until June 30 of 2022.
President Duterte orders a government-to-government transaction for the purchases of COVID-19 vaccine. The president says this will help avoid corruption.
Maganda sana government to government ang transaction. Walang corruption, wala lahat kasi government to government.
President Duterte also announced that Metro Manila will remain under the General Community Quarantine or GCQ from November 1 to 30. 2 provinces and 4 cities will also be under GCQ. The president said the local government units prefer to make their community quarantine classifications permanent because measures have been proven effective in lowering the transmission rate.
Herewith is the proposed community quarantine classification subject to appeals from the LGUs. General Community Quarantine or GCQ from November 1 to 30. NCR, gusto man talaga nilang Batangas, Iloilo City, Bacolod City, Tacloban City, Iligan City, Lanao del Sur. Look, we are not here to make your life miserable or sad. We are here to make your life comfortable and to make you happy.
In other news, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the decision of the Philippine Red Cross to stop conducting tests will not affect free testing for arriving OFWs. Roque explains that the reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction or RT-PCR tests of all OFWs remain free of charge. He said the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA is shouldering the cost of the test.
Wala po yan. Libre po. Libre po mga OFWs. Joseph, libre ang mga OFWs ang magbabayad po niyan, OWA. Kaya naman yan po ang assurance natin sa mga private labs. Wag po kayo mag-alala. Hindi po kayo ma-PRRD dahil subject naman talaga po for reimbursement ng PhilHealth ang test na to be given to OFWs. No? At lahat naman po ng mga private labs providers know how they can collect from PhilHealth.
House Speaker Lord Alan Velasco called on the Senate to prioritize the passage of a bill creating the Department of Disaster Resilience or DDR. Velasco reiterates the creation of the department as Typhoon Quinta battered different parts of Luzon. The House of Representatives approved the bill on third and final reading last September 21 and is now awaiting deliberations in the Senate. Velasco is one of the authors and sponsors of House Bill 5989. He urged the Senate to pass their own version so that they can subsequently work on the enrolled bill to be sent to President Duterte. The department is meant to address the adverse effects of disasters, noting that the country is located in the Pacific Ring of Fire and is frequented by typhoons and earthquakes. Video conferencing is proving to be an effective tool in legal proceedings under the new normal. Supreme Court Administrator Midas Marquez said a total of 110,369 video conference hearings were held from May 4 to October 16, with a success rate of 88%, while the remaining 12% were affected by connectivity issues. Out of the 81,888 persons deprived of liberty released from March 17 to October 16, more than half were released through video conference hearings. At present, courts are adopting at least a 50% skeletal workforce as part of alternative work arrangement. However, this may depend on the discretion of the judge. The court may allow a full workforce if it is overloaded with cases. Free bikes from the Labor Department have been distributed in Metro Manila, Tuguegarao, Cagayan, and Cavite. This project, called Freebiz, aims to provide an alternative job for displaced informal workers, with many engaging in delivery service. The package consists of a bicycle, helmet, raincoat, water bottle, a thermal bag, and Android mobile phone with 5,000 pesos load. Labor Chief Silvestre Bello III reminds the recipients of free bikes to take their jobs seriously and help those in need. He is also hoping that other private companies and other local government units will also partner with them in this free bike project. As restrictions on mass gatherings remain in place due to COVID-19, Filipinos experience a different way of honoring their dead. Before, people gather at the cemeteries to light their candles and offer flowers at the tomb. But this year, all public and private cemeteries are closed starting tomorrow until November 4 due to the virus. Let us find out how our fellow kababayans commemorate the death of their loved ones.
Sa bahay lang. Hindi na kami pupunta dito. Tsaka madaming tao. Maganda na yung umiiwas sa maraming tao.
Social distancing po, kailangan po natin ngayon yun dahil po sa pandemic po natin iniiwasan. Maraming salamat po.
Gaan ko na po kasi napapabalita na bawal sa undas. Tsaka death anniversary po ng stepfather ko. Mas pabor yun kasi siya iwas sa COVID nga na kumakalat nga.
Yata kami magbubukas. Ang lamang po namin ay magbantay po rito. Kung sakasakaling dadagsa po, masasawata po namin.
Still to come, GSIS opens educational loan for members. More on this when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita, basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Several parts of Negros Island and Luzon reported damages caused by heavy rains and floods brought by Typhoon Quinta, including millions of pesos and agricultural losses in Cagayan. Marita Muaje with more.
More than 200 families have been displaced by floods in various parts of Negros Occidental following torrential rains brought by Typhoon Quinta on Sunday and Monday. The Provincial Disaster Management Program Division reported the evacuees came from the towns of Isabela, Binalbagan, Moises Padilla, and Hinubaan. Meanwhile, a 1-year-old and 3-month-old baby drowned in a creek in Sitio Barrio Daan, Barangay Gimpanaan, Moises Padilla. Flash floods also damaged 3 bridges in Hinubaan and neighboring Sipalay City, while a landslide was reported in Barangay San Jose, Sipalay. In Negros Oriental, a villager died while hundreds of people were rescued, evacuated, and displaced in some areas since Sunday as Typhoon Quinta inundated places and caused flooding and landslides in certain areas. The person was reported dead after crossing a river in Siaton and was caught in a flash flood. Hundreds were evacuated in Santa Catalina Town, Bayawan City, and Basay. Meanwhile, Governor Roel Degamo ordered the Provincial Social Welfare and Development Office to deploy social workers to the affected areas for relief and rehabilitation purposes. Meanwhile, a low-lying village in San Antonio Town, Nueva Ecija, was isolated by floods as the water level in most rivers and creeks rose above normal on Monday afternoon. Isolated by floodwater was Barangay San Jose based on the monitoring report of the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. Also, floodwaters rendered the Bongabon to Rizal and San Antonio to La Paz Tarlac roads impassable to light vehicles. In Cagayan, the monsoon-induced floods and landslides have damaged 59.59 million pesos worth of agricultural crops. The hardest-hit towns in the provinces were Santa Pracedes, Claveria, Sanchez, Mira, Pamplona, Abulog, Ballesteros, and Alacapan. The provincial government has been planning on giving assistance to the affected farmers. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muaje.
The Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, is conducting clearing operations in some areas in Central Luzon which were hit by Typhoon Quinta. The DPWH says there are some road sections that were closed to traffic due to floods, landslide, mudslide, and other obstructions since Sunday night. The district engineering offices reported several unpassable roads in Nueva Ecija, Aurora, and Pampanga. DPWH Regional Director Roselier Tolentino said the agency's maintenance crew are now undertaking clearing operations in these areas. He said all the DPWH maintenance crew, operators, and equipment have been on standby for quick response to any eventuality. To help solve the perennial flooding problem in Cebu City without drastic legal actions, Mayor Edgardo Labella on Monday offered an engineering solution to owners of structures that are blocking the waterways. Labella appealed to these owners to voluntarily remove the structures that are obstructing the rivers, canals, and esteros as part of the engineering measures. He said that instead of immediately instituting drastic legal action, the building owners need to work with the city in removing the obstructions. The office of the building official presented 83 structures, both commercial and residential, that are considered to be nuisance and are needed to be demolished due to violation of the law on easement. Building owners have so far manifested to comply. Over 18,000 families or 64,000 persons in the Bicol region have started decamping to return to their respective communities as weather conditions improved on Monday. Only 18,000 of the nearly 28,000 families who evacuated on Sunday were initially allowed to return home. Typhoon Quinta made landfall Sunday night at the eastern portion of Albay, covering the towns of Tiwi, Malinaw, Bakakay, Malilipot, including Tabaco City, before it traversed the southern Luzon area. OCD Bicol said Quinta affected 608 villages and over 213,000 families across the region. Meanwhile, DPWH reported that the Maharlika Highway from Bicol going to Metro Manila was passable to all types of vehicles. Power outages were also reported in Albay, Catanduanes, Sorsogon, and Camarines Sur. State Pension Fund GSIS on Monday opened a 20 billion peso Study Now, Pay Later loan program for the college education of its members' kin. GSIS President and General Manager Rolando Ledesma Makasait said members who have at least 15 years of government service can avail of a 10-year educational loan for their kin in college. Under the GSIS Financial Assistance Loan Educational Loan, the maximum amount that may be borrowed per academic year is 100,000 pesos, covering tuition and other school fees. A member may nominate up to 2 student beneficiaries under the program. The interest rate is only 8%. The program was made in response to the call of President Duterte for credit support to education in light of the economic effects of the pandemic. Up next, COVID-19 solidarity trial in the country is set on December. And let us take a look at how weapons are used as art. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The third phase of the World Health Organization solidarity trial on possible COVID-19 vaccines in the Philippines will start in December. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergara says the WHO has given a commitment that the announcement of the clinical trial sites and other details will be given within this week. Meanwhile, she said the Russian vaccine manufacturer Gamaleya is still in talks with a Philippine-based contract research organization. The organization will represent Gamaleya for possible local manufacturing of anti-COVID-19 vaccine. While the Chinese vaccine Sinovac has been cleared for COVID-19 clinical trials by the Department of Science and Technology, Vergara says its manufacturer would still have to get approval from the Ethics Board. The government has allotted 2.5 billion pesos for the purchase of COVID-19 vaccines under the proposed 2021 national budget. The local government of General Santos City established more community-based vaccination sites as part of the month-long immunization activity for measles and rubella that kicked off on Monday. Rebecca Okat of the City Health Office, or CHO, says they tapped local chapels, community centers, purok, and satellite barangay halls as vaccination centers to increase coverage. The CHO seeks to cover over 50,000 children aged 9 to 59 months old in this year's measles and rubella supplemental immunization campaign, which will run until November 25. The DOH Region 12 set a goal of at least 95% to ensure that local communities will have herd immunity against the two diseases. Okat reiterates measles and rubella vaccines are free and safe for use, as attested by the DOH and the WHO. More members and supporters of the New People's Army, or NPA, have been yielding to the government as they heed the government's call for genuine peace building and development, authorities say. Following the surrender of 40 NPA members and mass supporters in mid-October, another batch consisting of 37 NPA mass supporters surrendered in Davao Oriental on October 20. They were personally welcomed by the Provincial Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, Vice Chair Ednar Dayanghirang. Dayanghirang said the massive surrender is among the effects of President Duterte's Executive Order 70 through Governor Nelson Dayanghirang's Executive Order 13. The national directive pulls all government agencies and local government units together to provide development programs in communities vulnerable to insurgency. Dayanghirang said insurgency is not just a mere issue of poverty, but the relationship between the government and the people. Firearms surrendered by former members of the Cordillera People's Liberation Army, or CPLA, will be used as materials for art pieces to serve as a reminder that peace can be achieved through dialogues. Brigadier General Arwin Pagkalinawan, Regional Director of the Police Regional Office Cordillera, says they proposed that these demilled firearms be given to artists to be made as artworks. The art pieces will be installed at Mount Data Hotel in Bauco Mountain Province in commemoration of the peace that Cordillera introduced to the country. The surrender of firearms is part of the agreement in one of the successful peace talks in history. In 1986, former President Corazon Aquino and rebel priest Conrado Balueg signed an indigenous peace agreement known as the 1986 SIPAT Agreement and Mount Data SIPAT Agreement. Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process, Secretary Carito Galvez Jr. said President Duterte has committed to honor the past peace agreements entered into by government. The Philippine Dragon Boat Alliance may send a letter to the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF, requesting for the resumption of their training sessions. In a palace press briefing, Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque advised the Dragon Boat team to put the request in writing so it could be discussed among members of the IATF. Last month, the Philippine Basketball Association was able to secure a provisional approval to hold a PBA bubble in Clark, Pampanga. The concept of the PBA bubble is patterned after the National Basketball Association model, wherein all players from every team would have no physical contact with other people outside of it. This includes the respective families.
I'm one of the supporters of the Philippine Dragon Boat team, no? So ang advice ko po sa kanila, sumulat sila formally sa IATF at aaktuhan naman po ito.
El Nido is easing its travel restrictions to welcome more tourists starting October 30. Tourism Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat says the provincial government of Palawan agreed to move on with the second phase of El Nido's travel bubble. The expanded travel bubble would allow tourists to enter the island, provided they undergo and submit a negative RT-PCR test result at least 72 hours before the trip. 9 establishments, including the El Nido resorts, have obtained a certificate of authority to operate and to reopen its doors to tourists outside the province via the travel bubble strategy. 27 others were given provisional certificates of authority to operate to start accommodating guests. Take one more look at today's biggest stories. President Duterte orders the Department of Justice to investigate allegations of corruption in the entire government. The chief executive is also pushing for government-to-government transaction on COVID-19 vaccine purchase. Swab tests remain free for OFWs. And El Nido Palawan expands its travel bubble until Friday. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, check our webpage or follow the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government, how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags on all our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the page of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's the daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. I am Rom Dulfo. Good day and stay safe, everyone.